All right, guys. Good afternoon. This is Alex here with Elevated Lifestyle Lab Podcast, bringing you episode 10. I'm back here with my main man, Dr. Steven Zanfini. We've done a few podcasts together. I'm sure you guys know who this guy is. He's bringing another miracle story on today. We're going to do a quick segment here at the beginning. That way we can get a full video shot of Miss Margo while she's here. I want to introduce Miss Margo and her daughter, Andrea.
Yes.
They're coming here to share her story, and we really wanted to emphasize how the progress has been going for Margo and all the treatments that she's had, which we're going to go over later in the podcast, but we're going to do a quick video segment. I'm going to let Andrea talk to her just briefly because I want you guys to see, because a few years ago, Margo was not able to really respond like this, able to hold a conversation and really not know what's going on cognitively. So I really wanted to have the video to show the progress she's had and the ability to have her life back.
Yes.
So, Andrea, if you want to just take it away a little bit, just
Yes.
to share just
Yes.
briefly her
Well,
experience.
3 years ago, she actually had a 0% chance of survival. So even more than not responding, it's amazing to have my miracle mom here with me. So thanks for introducing us.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
Mommy, how are you doing today?
Oh, well, well, um, I'm glad they are trying to help me, you know.
Yeah, I know you got a good team, right?
Mhm.
We call us all Team Margo.
That's awesome. It's really amazing.
Yeah, and are you thankful that we met Dr. Steve and we could do the cold laser and everything like that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and the wiggle board helps your leg so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fantastic. And you're looking so great. My mother's going to be 83 years old next month. Looking very fancy, Mommy. I'm so happy you're here with me.
Thank you, Margo. I really appreciate you coming on and showing your progress you've had from where you came from. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm always glad to have people like you, you know, to help me back to health.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's amazing. You have a great team with you. Dr. Steven and your daughter, they've done a tremendous job with you. That's very, very important to have that around.
yeah. We're lucky to have each other.
Yeah, that's great.
It's a great team, and we hope to help other people on this journey to really show people how to combine different therapies and get such an amazing, miraculous result. Really, no case is hopeless, and everyone has a chance to recover because the body is an incredible healing machine, and the brain is an incredible rebuilding neuroplastic machine, because my mom has been able to recover function and rebuild the half of her brain that disappeared. It's all back,
It's amazing.
Amazing stuff. So good job, Mommy. You keep on doing your good work. Thanks for working so hard.
Well, I like to live, you know, and
Yeah, you're living life, for enjoying every day, right?
mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. So we're gonna send you home with your friend Aggie, and you're gonna have a nice, relaxing evening, and have a nice dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we will come back as soon as we have you all set up.
Great. Thanks, Margo. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Margo.
Cool.
Well, thank you for coming, for taking the
Taking
time.
your time. Yeah.
Absolutely. You were welcome.
Amazing.
Yep.
Amazing.
That's
Mommy.
awesome.
Amazing. Okay.
All right, guys, we are back. Sorry about that. We had a big thunderstorm coming in. We had to get Margo in the car to get her home. But we are back, and I would like to start with the backstory and why we are bringing you on here to tell your amazing story. So, Andrea, I'm going to give it to you for a little bit. Just kind of give us the backstory of what happened to Margo back in 2017. Is that what happened?
It's about 3 years ago,
Okay.
actually. So my mom had a brain aneurysm, and it was the middle cerebral artery that ruptured, which is quite an important part of the brain blood flow. And unfortunately, I did not find her for a while. I think it happened in the afternoon the day before, and she could have been laying there up to 19 hours, which is really detrimental.
Scary.
Yeah, with these brain injuries, because the blood was flowing in the brain, inside the brain tissue, and also in between the skull and the brain. So there was a lot of damage. And when I got her to the emergency room, they told me they had to transport her to a different hospital in order to get surgery. So she needed to have a ventriculostomy and also get coiling so that the brain so that an aneurysm didn't happen again. So they said that during the transport, she probably would not make it. So they were preparing me for that because there was so much blood in her brain that her brain floated. And when that happens, it's a 0% chance of survival. So she had a 0% chance of survival. But as you saw, she's here and strong as can be. And she turned 80 a week after she got into the ICU. And next month, she's going to be 83. And she's looking fantastic, as you saw, in every way and getting stronger every day. And to me, it's incredible that someone at that age can have that type of neuroplasticity and that type of recovery, physically, mentally, everything. And her spirit is really also completely amazing to me. She does not give up. She's a strong, strong woman, for sure. So anyway, we got her up to the other hospital, and she was in the SICU for about a month. And then for about 2 months, we went to an acute rehab called Lawnwood, which was attached to that Lawnwood Hospital. And the SICU was an incredible place. The care was really top notch. But even in a place like that, I think it's so important for your loved ones to be with you because things can still go wrong. The one morning I was gone, she got double chest x rays, which is horrible. And the same doctor tried to give her medications she was allergic to. And you just need someone there watching because she was really on full life support and not conscious for most of that time. And then in Lawnwood, I was still there from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day, and bringing her food because the nutrition in these places is leaves much to be desired, and I really didn't want her to eat canned horrible food in the middle of trying to recover from something like this. So, I was also there to provide extra stimulation. One of the surgeons taught me her left side went completely numb. And I had been watching her overnight and said, sometimes at night I see her move and I see that left side move. He goes, oh, that means there's connection. So he pinched her really hard. She was screaming. I was standing on the other side of the room and there were tears squirting out of my eyes. I couldn't believe what he was doing to my mother. And he said, if you want me to stop pinching you, take your left hand and move my hand away. And wouldn't you know it, her left hand moved. Wow. And that's really what I learned about extra stimulation. And we've taken that to much different levels with Dr. Steve and much kinder levels. but it did teach me that I needed to be there. And she was so tired she couldn't stay awake for anything. So I was there to wake her up during her therapies. And they actually did get her standing a month after it happened. They had her standing with a walker. But then after she left there, she went to a skilled nursing facility. Not that it was a particularly bad one, but these places are just tough places to be with everyone being, hopped up on antibiotics. No one's bodies are in good condition, and there's C. diff spores flying around, and UTIs are rife, which I didn't even understand what a UTI can do to you mentally and to your mind and to your body, especially at that age and especially when you're not moving. So, we've been battling staying off the antibiotics and battling UTIs. And when she was there, she battled C. diff twice, which can be fatal. And that's just, you don't even have to have contact with that. That can just be through the air system and spores. So by the time I got her home from there, I worked with an elder care lawyer and social workers to make sure she had all of the right medical insurances set up because she had just moved here from Canada right before it happened. And that's another thing that you have to consider when you're a caretaker, making sure that legally everything is set up properly. So I had an elder care lawyer help me, which was it was expensive, but it was one of the best choices I made for sure. So when I finally was legally allowed to bring her home, she was just draped over in a wheelchair, drooling out of the side of her mouth, and that was my mother. There was nothing else left because she had gone so much downhill from being in that place. So the first year she had a stay-at-home caretaker, and I was there with her. And then I realized that no one was going to do anything the way I was going to do it, and I rearranged my life so I could be her main caretaker. And then I get help from Medicare, Medicaid. I get 23 hours a week of caretakers. I get supplies, and they also help me cover medical expenses so I can see amazing people like Dr. Steve. And it's a great combination of being able to hire someone privately, getting help from Medicare, Medicaid, and getting supplies sent to me so I don't have to worry about anything, all the incontinence supplies and, gloves and things like that I need. So now she's at home with me, and it's been an incredible year. I've just seen her get better and better since the day that I moved in permanently with her, and we did hit a plateau of her um, improving, but in July of 2019, yeah, was the first time I guess a year ago, was the first time we got to meet with Dr. Steve, and I want to hand it over to him because he has really gotten her off of that plateau of just being on a maintenance occupational therapy, maintenance physical therapy, to having new heights every single day.
Yeah, we haven't hit any plateaus, I think, since we started.
No, it's just a
And
constant up.
and that's the big thing that we like to talk about is that, when you understand how to stimulate the brain in so many different ways, we can you hear me better?
Yeah.
When we stimulate the brain in so many different directions, we can keep growing and growing and growing and not hit plateaus. I haven't seen a single plateau. If anything, I've only seen gains with Margo.
For
the
sure.
Entire
Ever
way.
since last year, there's been nothing but
Um,
gains.
And this is the model that we talk about a lot. We talk about how it looks like a triangle. And a lot of the therapies, mainstream will want you to do physical therapy, OT. They want you to do all these different therapies. So they're working the brain from the top and working its way down. They're starting with all this motor sensory stuff. But what we talk about here especially is the primitive reflexes. And that's one thing that we found on Margo right out of the gates. We found primitive reflexes were still retained. And how can you grow cognitive or sensory motor if the developmental triangle shows that this is the way that it happens, but mainstream still just avoids it? Neurologists don't check primitive reflexes, let alone if they find it, what are they going to do for application? How do we get these things to go away? So Margo had a Babinski for quite a while. It was a really big Babinski, and it would take several minutes with the laser therapy to get it even to go away that day.
And then I also continue my work at home every night, and I have fantastic logs that I keep of everything that I'm doing, and her blood pressure 3 times a day and everything like that. So I would mark, I know exactly how long I was doing the Babinski and what the results were.
Yeah.
And then we would come back to see Dr. Steve 1 to 3 times a week when we were really going for it, and we could see the progress, in the office as well. But it's really important to keep the work and the logging going at home.
It does, because you can kind of know what's going on as far as the sympathetics. If they're constantly firing and you're in fight or flight constantly, if you have a log that shows that the fight or flight was a lot better that day, then you could kind of monitor which hemisphere you're going to work on in the brain that day too. So having a really good log really helps for our plan of care for the treatments in the future, because then we know, like, if she's not having a bad fight or flighty day, maybe we'll go work on like the left brain that day. And then we'll track and monitor her for the next few days to see how fight or flighty she'll get off of it, to know, like, okay, maybe we shouldn't stimulate that again this week. So then we have all our different patterns of our neurosensory integration systems to, to get that brain and get that neuroplasticity growing. But again, having Andrea do the homework at home is really the key. And that's what we really emphasize here at my office, is that I'm going to be the main waterfall down to get that brain really working. And then you guys doing your homework at home is what really fixes and gets the developmental triangle working properly.
Yeah, like for instance, when he was talking about firing up the brain, that's so important, because obviously that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to rebuild and fire and rebuild and fire, but then that can throw into fight or flight, and then our blood pressure go crazy, and then the primary care physician wants to give more pharmaceuticals. So it's this sort of, it can turn into a downward spiral. So you really have to, as the caretaker and as the patient, be very responsible and try other techniques to help yourself. So when my mom was fired up by the laser and her anxiety went crazy, we did breathing exercises. We did EFT, which is an emotional freedom technique, which is tapping, and all sorts of different things like that, and listening to solfeggio frequencies to calm her system down. My mom and I do yoga together, calms her down. Sit outside together, listen to nature, let her get some direct sunlight. All these things.
Vagal stimulation.
Yeah, all these things help him, Dr. Steve, do his job better. If I would just throw her in a dark room and feed her canned soup, this would not be the situation we would be in.
And unfortunately, that's mainstream medicine that's wanting to do that, unfortunately.
Right. Throw a pill at it.
Good luck.
and and wait to see what happens. That's not going to happen. You have to take all different aspects of therapies, and allopathic medicine is important at times. I mean, I can't have my mother have high blood pressure. It's one of the few things she actually still is on. I just was able to take it from 4 meds down to 2, and only once a day, and the smallest possible dosage, where she was on a much higher dosage multiple times a day. So I still use allopathic methods
very
and
neat.
medicine.
Sure.
We all are very thankful, and I'm so thankful that they were able to put a tube in my mother's head to drain the excess spinal fluid,
Sure.
and that she has these coils that keep her from bursting a new one. So I am very thankful for that. But I think we all have to think about combining different holistic ways to save ourselves.
Lots of variables in this.
Right.
Sure.
One of the big things that I love to talk about was Margo was my first case ever to go nonverbal to verbal. So when we worked on her right brain, because she had a right side stroke, once we worked on it, it was we came in on one day, and then Andrea called the office next day, and she's like, "Hey, my mom's talking."
Chit chatty, very chit chatty.
Yeah, she's talking. And then you were like, I think you were speaking German to her in the background, and she was speaking back German, and you're like, this is interesting.
Yeah.
And that was just after one treatment of knowing and firing all the different pathways into the brain to really get that motor response lit up and I mean, we also worked a little bit on the left side, which is, we work on Broca's area to get that chattiness going, but she reacted really well. She was my first case ever that I turned nonverbal to verbal.
It was
And
incredible. It was
I had
incredible
seen
to
it
see.
done a lot from all of my colleagues, but just witnessing it was like, okay, now I'm into the world of turning nonverbal to verbal. So it's really just about that stimulation and knowing where to accurately aim those lasers. They really are powerful.
Yeah, it was
So,
cool. I remember you posting that, and you had her on the machine that shakes with the mask on, with the
Standing.
headphones on, with the lasers firing, and she's standing on it.
Standing
It was-
for the first
Yeah,
time.
it was,
Yeah,
that was
Yeah.
super
pretty
cool.
cool.
Standing for the first time since that one time she stood in the acute rehab. I mean, after that it was just really, really tough going. So
And then like PT's trying to get her to walk, and we're trying to get her to crawl.
right, we had to get her to crawl because
have
she
to-
had primitive reflexes here. The only way to get rid of those is the way a baby does it,
Yeah.
to crawl. So it was such an amazing thing to learn when we were talking about that.
So we talk about it as a triangle, and the first level is primitive reflexes. Then the next one is sensory motor. So this is why I think all the different therapies that are being done are doing it a little bit backwards. They really need to be assessing the primitive reflexes first before they start to move to the sensory motor stuff. Because then once the sensory motor stuff gets better, then we're going to have a stronger cognitive system. And that's what we're witnessing. So we're literally watching Margo go through the triangle.
Yes.
So we started with the prims. The prims are cleared. Now we're getting sensory motor. I mean, you can definitely see the sensory motor working.
Yes.
And then now look at the cognition. I mean,
Yes.
she answers questions. She tells you how she's doing. She really
Yes.
does. And
she grasps what's going on all the time.
Yeah.
And on the motor sensory thing, she used to not be able to feed herself, and then she used to have a nose itch, and she would just sort of be like an inch away. And the other day she was in therapy, she just went, and I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, the speed behind it and everything. I mean, the things that excite me, but but that was just an amazing thing to see. I mean, you can really see the triangle, like as we got the primitive reflexes, and then you could see it building.
Sure.
And her cognition is definitely, it's been amazing. And she was actually deemed competent by doctors and lawyers, actually earlier this month.
That's awesome.
And 2 years ago they deemed her
0%
incompetent.
chance.
Yeah.
And she, I was a little stuck because I didn't have a full power of attorney, and if something happened, I didn't have the right paperwork set up because she just moved here from Canada so we could be together. And I was in a real bad position. So to have that cognition be so great, I'm so thankful to Dr. Steve because it's really saved our lives, because now I can make sure that my mom and I are safe.
Taken care of
Yeah.
properly. Yep. Yeah, it's
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's
Well,
been a fun
Andrea,
journey.
I mean, when you were quick to jump on board to be part of her caretaker, but I think you've had a lot of education in the medical field. You're a health coach yourself, right? So
Yes, I am a health coach.
So you weren't just just jumped into it all willy nilly. You had a good understanding of what you were gonna
Yes.
try to help
Yeah,
her
but I
with.
have to say that taking care of someone that's completely reliant on you is a
Completely
whole
different.
different thing. I mean,
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's like, oh, what do you do? And I don't have any kids. Changing diapers is a whole new thing for me, especially on your mom. Like the
Sure.
first couple times, I'm like, "No, I'm not sure if I should be saying this, but you just got to get over it and
Take care of
dive
her.
in
It's life.
Yeah.
and make it happen. And I definitely. I was definitely able to get her far because of my knowledge of holistic healing and my health coaching background, but it has been a very large trip of learning more and more every day. And, no one knows how to do this. And just because it worked one day doesn't mean it's going to work the next day. It's a
Average.
constant, yeah,
It's an average.
yeah, it's a
Just
constant,
finding what works, what doesn't work, and keeping those logs
That's amazing. Yeah, you're doing an
really
awesome job with that.
tells you what to do next.
Tells you the story of your
because-
body.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Right.
you're trying to drive the brain in a direction to get help, but if you drive too much, you meet metabolic threshold, you fire, fight, or flight as well. So understanding what to do for vagal stuff after the fact, that's what makes the brain go up and down so much, which gives it different algorithms. And that's what really impressed me with Andrea was the monitoring and what we did to get her off of pharmaceuticals. Like I'm not an expert on how to get people off pharmaceuticals, and I never pretend to be, but when we learn what we can do through stimulus and how we can do more vagal stuff after the fact to calm the fight or flight down, then we're going to need less pharmaceuticals. So then that's when you can start actually weaning and then getting doctors involved, on our team that want to help wean her off as long as she's providing accurate results.
right, right.
She doesn't just, she's talking. She could tell the doctor how she feels now. And,
Right.
It's like, Margo, how are you feeling? And she'll answer you. If she's not having a good day, she will tell you that also.
Yeah,
And,
yes.
I've
yes.
had that before when she comes in here. You could just tell it's been a rough day. And, so we know, okay, we're definitely not going to fire that system today.
Yes.
We're going to do a calming session today. So
Yeah.
we're going to do lots of vagal stuff. So, that's what really why we're doing this whole podcast. Our message to get to everyone is there's always solutions. Holistic health, if there's something, there's always an alternative. There's always an alternative to everything, and I think that she makes the best system for anybody trying to work their parents off of having accidents like this or injuries, especially brain injuries when they're on heavy medications. I think Andrea is the best out there when it comes to how to properly monitor and log to get people better and to get them. Because if you're sitting here taking that list of prescriptions that she was on, how long are you really going to think you're going to live for? It's not, you can't live like that.
Well, like you were saying, when she was on all that, it was
Yeah.
like she was half here. She was
This
just
was-
in
was,
zombie
this was her
mode,
huge
but it
list
was
of
helping.
prescriptions.
It helps.
multiple times a
Yeah.
day.
It
was horrible.
It's what saved her life,
Sure.
and that's what I believe, and that's the initial philosophy behind medicine back in the 1920s was, you're not supposed to stay on drugs just to stay on drugs. You're supposed to be on drugs to save your life.
Right.
That was the philosophy. Now these Bill Gates and all these people are making trillions of dollars just by trying to give you drugs,
Dump it, yeah.
and then they're going to keep you on them, and then doctors don't really try to maintain you to get off of them.
Right.
They're not offering alternative methods to saying, hey, what if you gargled water before bed to try to stimulate the vagus nerve or to try to make your eyes water? That would be vagal response. You would think like mainstream would give you the alternative solution to giving you the backup plan to what their medicine is going to do, because we know it's going to fire, fight, or flight. So
Right.
what are they doing to help you in the other sense of that?
Right.
That's
right.
where
And
that's where
also,
what she does comes into play.
One of the things I always consider when I see like a primary care physician, this is someone that, is going to be spending about 15 minutes on you, and, they're brilliant and, hopefully, and they know what they're doing, hopefully. Right.
Sorry.
But you yourself, I have this is my logs at home, but this is my log of blood files, and I have my mom's whole blood analysis histories in here. So I can say, listen, 5 years ago she was XYZ, now she's this. I don't think we need to do this. Don't you think? It doesn't make any sense. So, just because a level is the average level, everyone doesn't fall in the averages. You can't just look at one number and look at the average of any human being and say you're off. You have to look at your history and see how you were feeling. And, it is a balance, because especially with something like a brain aneurysm, I have to be careful with cholesterol and I have to be careful with blood pressure. But that is why I log so much, and that's why I make sure that I do frequent blood testing so I can really watch what's going on. But I don't so easily let them give my mother new pills.
How was it trying to convince them to allow you to start reducing the medications? How'd that go?
Well, it depends on your doctor. You know,
Yeah.
the first step I had to do is I had to find the right doctor
Yeah.
that was willing to work with us. And, you know, I went through several that weren't willing to. You know, they just say, nope, she's on that the rest of her life, and that's that, discussion closed. And, you know, I'm here to have a discussion. I'm here to have a discussion about my mother's health and my mother's life. I'm not here for you to make money off of a pharmaceutical.
No.
So, you know, out the door, on to the next one. And now we have Dr. Augustine Sands in Port St. Lucie, and he has been a fantastic ally for me to let me help him look at the analysis and little by little get her off of a lot of these horrible pharmaceuticals.
That's great. It's great he's willing to have the open mindedness to do that.
Yes.
And especially doing the lab work and the consistent testing and keeping track of it. I mean, that just makes sense.
The
I mean,
results.
you're keeping, the
Yeah.
results. You change this, it tweaked that, this level
We
changed
don't
in the
change
good way.
unless we have
Yeah.
results.
Yeah.
If
Right.
we don't have results, then we have to do something else to change it.
Yeah, and you have to test to know results, and you have to log to know results.
Yeah.
And also on the neurological front, it was really hard to find a neurologist that wasn't going to force me to give her an anti seizure. And the anti seizure meds were horrible. It was
I've
like she
heard.
was. It was like she was the living dead. She would look at me, but she would stare right through me, and she couldn't do anything. She couldn't move. She couldn't talk. It was like she was dead. So they made me go through many different ones of these, and you know, as I was going through different doctors, and the last doctor I finally looked at, and I said, you know what? I know she'd rather be dead to live like this, and you know, at this point, I'd rather her be dead than live like this. This is no way to live. This is insane. And I walked out, and I was able to find Dr. Kashouti in Stewart, Florida, a neurologist, and he helped my mom get a medical marijuana card, and we started with CBDs, and he helped me learn how to dose her, because that was one of my big things. I'd always taken CBDs on my own, but you know, I can do it more willy-nilly with myself.
Sure.
But if it's my mother,
For medical conditions.
right, you know, and
right.
it's scary to do that
Yeah.
because no one knows,
Right.
you know. So you start slow and watch and monitor. So I started with
Watch
3
the
drops.
spikes.
Yeah.
And then I did 5 drops. Then I did 15 drops. Then I did 15 drops 3 times a day. Then I did 3 dropperfuls a day. And then I dialed it back from there. And, you know, 1 dropperful seems to be good for her, but of course it depends what strain you're using and what the makeup is of the CD. These are some of the oils I'm using. And the ones I was getting from the medical marijuana dispensaries, they all had trace THC.
Did they?
And that actually played havoc with my mother. She has an intolerance to THC, which I didn't quite know. But after 2 weeks to a month of taking one of these, she would just go into an anxiety loop it took me like 2 months to get her out of.
Wow.
And then I found one called Prime My Body, which is made out of CBGs, and it's this nano emulsion. It was very good, but they're very closed with their information, so I always didn't exactly know how I felt about that, you know. But then through Dr. Steve, I found Galaxy Groves, galaxygroves.com, and they're the growers and the extractors, grown completely pure and extracted with such intelligence and an emphasis on purity, and all of their results have third-party independent lab studies which they post, so you know exactly what you're getting. So they have a THC-free one that they're doing, and I was speaking to Dennis, who is a part of the family there, and he is recommending that I start doing a CBDA version that has some THC in it. CBDA and THCA are the raw versions of the plant, not heated, and it reacts in a very different way. If you have a heated THC, it's like 9 times more the psychoactive effects of it, and I think that's what my mom is sort of, you know, even though she wasn't really getting high from the trace
Reacting
that she
to.
had, it's just amplified. So even though there's only a trace, it's times 9 how it reacts in your body and your brain. But the reason I'm still pushing the THC issue is because that is what actually breaks the blood-brain barrier, and I think I'll get much better at results because, you know, it helps build neuroplasticity, it helps with anxiety. I also used hemp GBX from Amare, which is a company that maybe we'll speak a little bit more about. They're a mental wellness company, and their CBD is really, really fantastic too. And they do a lot of essential oil extracts and herbs combined with it, and it goes with the whole line of mental wellness products my mom takes and brain building products my mom takes from that company. So it was a really fantastic marriage when I gave her that, but it has have the trace THC. So after a month of taking it, kabang, there went the spikes. So little by little, I have her back down now and on the nice THC free version from Galaxy Groves. So then I'm going to start adding a little bit of the CBDA in and seeing how that goes and keep my monitoring going. And even if that works for a month or 2 months or 3 months, it doesn't mean that that is what's going to work the rest of her
cure-all,
life.
yeah.
And it's better, really. The brain works on patterns. So if you're trying to grow the brain, it's better to kick it up and let it think a little bit more. Try the next thing. So I'll bring in the Prime My Body one again, and then touch it with a little bit of the hemp GBX, and then I'll go back to the Galaxy Grove mixture, and I'll do that. So I'll be cycling through those basically.
That's great. I've heard so much from the CBD, especially a few years ago, more in the pediatric section of the anti-seizure medications. But you
Amazing.
hear so
I've
many
worked-
benefits.
A lot of my health coaching clients have children with seizures, and I've had great luck with the Galaxy Groves and the Prime My Body with them and the MRI. So those are my three tops right now.
Three go-tos.
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah, because I mean, if you spike her again, we're gonna lose her for we have to
Yes.
inhibit some kind of treatment that we may need to do that day or something, and we might not be able to that time now. So it slows the treatment down now.
Yeah.
So we just have to be careful what we're doing. But we were talking about how Margo would get spikes, and we would figure out, if it was such a bad spike, it would take quite a while to get her better. But then we realized, like, we're working on her brain. We need to adjust her, and let's see what it does. So we had her on a bad day here one day when it was a really bad spike.
Yeah.
And as soon as we adjusted her, it just took her right out of fight or flight and knocked
Yeah.
her blood pressure down tremendously.
'Cause I was at home doing all my breathing techniques with her and doing yoga with her and doing EFT with her, trying and trying and trying. I had to increase her pharmaceuticals, which is like the worst thing in the world for me. And I just, for like 2 months, I was struggling and I couldn't get it down no matter what I did. But the day you adjusted her, Dr. Steve, I realized that she was in so much pain she couldn't breathe right because her rib was stabbing her lung. I mean, just from every angle, you have to look at everything from every angle.
Well, imagine being kind of almost bedridden for the longest time. I mean, you just need to get cracked and loosened up, get
Yeah.
that stuff broken up in there. Like, really?
Yeah.
I
Well,
can
I mean, if your
imagine.
ribs are locked up because of fight or flight, right,
All the
in this main
stress,
areas where
yeah.
all the vital organs are, that's where the fight or flight locks you up. So you become like short of breath. And that's one of the symptoms. So if the ribs are just locked up, you have to release them. But
Wow.
it's more of the upper cervical stuff that we were doing mostly on her that really kind of cracked the blood pressure. So we opened up the lungs and then we did some vagal stuff.
Yeah.
And it kind of just knocked it out. And I don't think, have we ever had issues since then?
No, the last time you checked her, she didn't need any adjusting at all. I mean, she's doing a lot of moving around and crawling and rolling now, and every day she's out of her chair and moving around. And I think the combination of giving her a good adjustment and a good fix and keeping her out of fight or flight has been just an amazing thing for her whole body, not just her brain.
Yeah, we've had some really remarkable results when we did chiropractic and then the brain laser turning her from nonverbal to verbal. It's been quite a growth experience here.
Yeah.
It's been a journey.
Well,
Yeah.
it makes perfect sense. I mean, the way you talk about the brain and how it grows, if you're taking a brain that's been damaged through severe trauma like that, you have to start at ground zero.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, you can't have them walking around when they can't even crawl or any of the reflexes aren't there. It's really cool to see the progression and the stuff that you can do in order to help fight all that stuff. It's
Yeah.
great.
So some of the other things we were doing is we were doing olfactory and pursuits and saccades. Could you talk a little bit about those two things?
Yeah,
that was incredible to
we were
add.
establishing what sides of the brain were weak, what areas of the brain were weak. So we know that the eye is doing movements, lateralized, pursuits and saccades. The right eye makes the left hemisphere drive a little bit more. So we could find what side was weak that day, and we could do eye movements and take out the nystagmus out of the eyes, and we could start doing eye movements. Eye movements have a lot to do with the balance of the brain. And I think if you get the eyes from not being in shaking mode, nystagmus, you're going to find that the fight or flight is a lot easier to calm down.
Right, and also what it helped with her, she was very nervous when she moved because when you're even like picking her up, she would just freeze up, and her blood pressure would spike because she was so nervous. And she actually, in the beginning, she would get so nauseous, she would vomit a lot. I couldn't even take her anywhere without her vomiting. And working with these eye movements has completely changed her life. And Dr. Steve showed me how to do them in the office, and I just continue at home. I have
Isn't it fascinating? The first time he showed me, I had no idea of what you could see just by doing like what a
Yes.
cop would do at a stop to you. But you can actually,
Yeah.
and you watch somebody that has an issue where they'll ask you to look to the side and just it's a bang, 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 bang,
It's
and then
like
you do a few of your things and you can see it's
70 to 80% of us are struggling with this.
it's a trip.
Yeah.
And that's just the proof that how much of America percentage-wise is in fight or flight.
Yeah.
We're nervous. We're in
even
rough
these, especially these
times.
days.
We're in rough times right now, from so many different variables. And so our bodies are constantly picking up fight or flight from so many different ways.
Just
So,
watching the news will do
yeah.
it to you.
Oh,
so
yeah.
understanding how to get out of this stuff is really the key. And to be honest with you, if 70-80% of America is struggling with fight or flight just because I can pick it up in the eye system, imagine what their gut's doing.
Right.
So 70% of Americans have a leaky gut. And again, we talk about this a lot and nobody understands it. The GI docs don't understand it. They think we're all kind of crazy. It's all conspiracy theory. But I mean, we have lab testing that shows what
What's
leaky
going
gut
on?
does. It's called zonulin add-on marker.
Right.
You add on a zonulin marker, you can find how leaky your gut is. If you want to see if it works, you could do functional approaches like taking GABA. You could take it, see if it leaks out of the gut, and if it crosses the blood-brain barrier. Let's say you take GABA, it makes your brain feel really good. You have a leaky gut. You could do it just by simply doing like a $20 test on a bottle of GABA, taking a good quality though, like a good pharmaceutical, third-party tested brand. You take it, and if it makes you feel really good, you have a leaky gut.
What's GABA? I never heard of that.
GABA, it's a neurotransmitter.
Okay.
It's not supposed to cross the blood-brain barrier.
Right.
Those molecules are supposed to be too big to cross, but if your gut is leaking, that means your blood-brain barrier is leaking. So then if it goes through your gut, it's going to go into the blood-brain barrier into your brain, and it's going to make you feel really good. That's how you know you have a leaky gut. If you just want to like try to say, "Hell, I can avoid a stool test," if you wanted to play it the moderate way, the functional approach way,
Right.
that's how you could do it.
Yeah.
So think about just in general, people have brain issues. People because of fight or flight issues.
Right.
If you're constantly dealing with anxiety and depression and all these different psychological systems, you have a brain imbalance.
And before my mom even had her injury, her accident, she was actually really stuck in fight or flight a lot. So a lot of the fight or flight and anxiety that we're dealing with now in her is left over from what she was going through before and what her chemical makeup was, and the fact that she was so nervous that she had a leaky gut even though she always ate well and took good care of herself.
Stress, right?
Stress.
Once
Stress.
the damage is done, the way I described with the leaky gut, I repeat myself a lot, but once the damage is done, the damage is done.
Yeah.
You have to take things to fix the gut now.
Sure.
You can't eat your way out of the leaky gut with food now, unless you're eating like bone broth. There are foods that have, therapeutic ways to it, but you really need to be doing on functional medicine is really the big key to fixing leaky gut.
Yes, that is always a good first place to look because it affects the rest of how your whole body's operating. It's your gut-brain axis, so it's affecting your brain, and it's affecting the way the rest of your body works. It's affecting how you're getting your nutrition.
It's the afferent,
Yeah,
the way the brain's always working. We know 90% of the brain's always receiving, 90% of that 90% is coming from the gut. So if that person has a gut that feels like a bowling ball, you have to address that gut if you think you're going to get the neuroplasticity that you're trying to open up. Because if the gut is feeling like a bowling ball, you better believe that person's in fight or flight, even if they're showing symptoms or not in the brain. That person's in fight or flight because the vagus nerve is the connection from the gut to the brain. So if the connection says, I'm feeling like a bowling ball, and you have really tight tonal patterns in the stomach, that's the signal of fight or flight going on. So you can just do like simple basics like putting vibration over the with a heating pad over the abdomen. Get the gut from feeling like, think about it like a muscle. If a muscle's really tight, the gut does the same thing. It's all based on tonal pattern. So if you put a heating pad with vibration over the gut, you can get the brain to start signaling fight or flight to go away.
yeah.
And start
With
signaling.
some good breathing exercises
Yes.
along with that.
Do it with it, and you talk big heavy about that.
The breathing,
Put
yeah.
them together. It's all vagal exercise. Gargle some water while you're doing it if you want to.
Yeah.
I always say gargle water till your eyes water. And if you do these little simple tricks along with like kind of the tricks that we use with all the technology, you're going to get that person out of fight or flight. You're going to start to get the results that you're looking for.
Yes.
You can't build one area in the brain and expect to not get a metabolic threshold of fight or flight. You're going to
Right.
pick it up. If you don't know how to deal with the other system now you're going to be in trouble because it's going to take 2 months to get rid of it now.
Right.
And then so you're only taking leaps every 2 months. Whereas we could do like Resimax tricks. We can put the laser in different settings, put them in the ear, signal vagal response. The Resimax has it's a vibrating instrument. It has like 9 resonance vibrational frequencies. We could put it underneath the chin. We could hit that laryngeal branch. That's what Sherrick from Resimax always talks about, is how to stimulate. So what we're doing is we're stimulating this big vagus nerve by all these different branches now. So if we light the whole Christmas tree up of the vagal system, we're going to get that brain to finally shut down. It's going to be really hard to get that brain to fire up unless something traumatic happens again. But other than that, if it's just a normal day, this is how you grow the brain. You grow it in phases, but you have to, again, you have to monitor, you have to log, you have to really do your homework on knowing what is going on to do the next step.
Right.
This isn't like, this is real maintenance now. That's why I love the team that we are, is because we are the master of logging. We are the master of alternative care. If something's going here, she's got some kind of technique to get you out of it.
Sure.
I mean,
You
breathing
do an
is
awesome job. Great job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
it's
one of the other
it's
things.
the sharpest.
One of the
Yeah.
other things that we used is also audio, and we were using solfeggio frequencies. We do it while we're doing the cold laser, but I also let her fall asleep to different
Binaural.
frequencies and binaural with headphones, so that the sound is slightly delayed on one side, and it actually helps the brain get stimulated. And you can choose a frequency to calm someone down. You can choose a frequency to fire someone up, or you can choose 528 for pure love. Can you talk a little bit more about solfeggio?
Yeah, we talk a lot about 528 hertz. It's program settings that we have in the lasers, but I like to do it through solfeggio especially. I listen to binaural beats myself at home. What we mean by binaural beats is it's like a hacking system of an algorithm pattern into the brain, and you can do it through different frequencies and vibrations to do either like a ramp up, or you can down regulate the brain as well through frequencies. 528 hertz is the frequency of love. It is the frequency of the universe. It's what's measured to, they call it the miracle frequency. They have all these studies to show that the miracle frequency will change DNA. And so if you're thinking about how you can get better rest at night, just listening to like a Bluetooth on in the room with some 528 hertz while you're sleeping, it's gonna change your circadian rhythms in your brain. You're gonna get more REM, you're gonna get more rest, which means that your vagus nerve is gonna work better. Because in my opinion, why I tell everyone to sleep to this music is because you're firing your parasympathetic system when you're sleeping. You're resting. So resting is when that body gets the brake pedal going. When the brake pedal's moving, that's when motility happens. You have digestion and rest all going on at the same time. Why would you not want to program an algorithm to help that speed up? Especially for like Margo, like your mom, where we have slow motility to begin with.
Right.
Because everything's working so slow. There's not a lot of neuroplasticity going on in the brain. So if we can speed up the brake pedal and then during the day slow down the gas pedal, that's how you get neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
That's how we've been kind of tackling this together and knowing like, okay, well, that CBD caused that spike. Okay, we'll bring her in, we'll down regulate her, adjust her, get her back calm again, try to do another frequency, try to do another theory now. So that's what we were doing. We were just keep playing with all the different patterns to make, and it's not always a bad thing to give the body something like a CBD with a mild threshold of THC to see what it does too, because sometimes it will open barriers and channels into the brain of neuroplasticity.
Well, yeah, THC can only cross the blood-brain barrier.
Yeah,
I guess unless you have leaky brain, then everything crosses.
but
Candy
I mean,
sometimes.
you can build a metabolic threshold with this stuff by
Yes.
stimulating it, but just calm it back down again.
Sure.
So it's like breaking barricades open to getting into that brain, and that's why she's doing so well. So knowing and understanding both the techniques of how to do that. We did it we don't just use the lasers, but now we're doing our neuro integration sensory system. It's called NeuroSage. A friend of mine, Dr. Kyle Daigle, is the creator of this. It is a hemispheric model video game now, or it can be virtual reality now. So the new 4.0 just got released on Monday. We're actually going to be upgrading our system with a virtual reality system.
Nice.
So we're going to get more involved with like pro athletes and stuff that need finer, faster communication, more more coordination skills, more balance, stronger.
Check out your
quicker.
Facebook for your last video. You were just
Yeah,
out there
I was
checking it
just
out.
on my last week when I was in Texas. We were like trying it out and
Yeah.
stuff. So
It's
it
not
got
just healing;
released.
it's optimizing.
Well, you
Yeah.
have to
Right.
do right and left movements and different angles of movements to increase the cerebellum to get stronger. If you can increase the cerebellum on any person, you're going to have stronger results. And that's really what this video game is kind of integrating. It'll have a right or a left hemisphere driven brain on the video, so you can pick each game to go right or left hemisphere driven based on colors, movements, sounds. So it's finally the first ever. It just got FDA approved this week. It is the first ever virtual medicine out there. You can actually get kids that are right brain deficient, which is most of our ADD, autism, ADHD, Asperger's. When you understand that right brain's really down, you could put them on a video game to actually bump their brain up on the right side.
We did it with my mom a couple times already. It's been incredible.
Cool.
Yeah, it's been incredible.
Yeah, we did it on the last podcast. We did a short little snippet of the graphics of the game itself. It's cool.
And it has a lot of frequencies that are built into it to calm the body down as well. So it has vagal stimulus going on as well while it has hemispheric stimulus.
And it's all different videos for all different types of
What you're trying
things
to
you want to
activate.
tackle.
Yep.
Yeah,
right?
that's
There's
cool.
certain games for like dopamine releases, dopamine response.
Yeah.
This stuff's so interesting because as you're explaining it, as we were watching it, how you can imagine a video game with a tunnel and you're driving down it, and the different ways it's turning or the different colors that it turns. If you're just thinking of it as a video game, then you're not thinking of the coolness of the neurology going on, of everything that's
the
firing.
functional
You're doing
behind
it for a reason. It's blue because of a reason. It's turning
Sure.
right
Yeah.
because of and that's what makes it really cool.
You can really drive one hemisphere now.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
very,
that's
very cool.
awesome.
Yeah, my mom's last session, she had the colored glasses on because we're working with color as well. There was also the same color in the room, so we had blue to calm her and the blue lights on in the room. We had the video playing. She had the headphones on. She had lasers on her head, lasers on her foot. She had peppermint oil,
And plug her nose in one
yeah,
nostril.
right. It's good to do olfactory on one side, so we did have that, and then we had this new stimulation for inside the ear with the vagal nerve, a little vibrating pen
Oh wow.
that stimulates just the right part of the ear, and that actually stimulates the vagal nerve. So we're sort of calming her and stimulating her at the same time, and it was an amazing
Perfect balance of
yeah,
therapy.
right. And then we also had the vibe plate, so she had the afferent signals going back to her brain from her foot because she has some spasticity in her right leg, so that's one of the things we work on a lot. So we had it all going on at once, and it was incredible.
It's a powerful
great.
Yeah.
system.
And she, I think she felt it because she really enjoyed it, and she did not take her eyes off the video, and she made sure her headphones didn't fall off, and she was right there. It was
Awesome.
incredible.
This is what we're going to be integrating this with in the future for stroke patients and one-side brain deficit, especially for the nonverbal, is that we can program now video game therapies driven to the left side of the brain to get the nonverbal to turn to verbal. So now I can like really drive it through the video game system with the lasers on very
Incredible.
special areas. Yeah, so I think we can drive nonverbal to verbal a heck of a lot faster now too.
That's awesome.
So again, but you have to log, you have to monitor.
yeah,
You
it's
have
a full
to,
time.
because when you're driving that left brain, sometimes you have to really be careful of like spikes, big time.
Yeah,
Especially aggression.
yeah. Well, it's cool to learn about all these things because then you can do maintenance at home because you learn about what colors do, what these essential oils will do, and what they can. You don't just go to the doctor and you get a 20-minute session. You go home and you're like, I'll see you next week. No, it's you can do these small, easy
Well, that's
at-home
how
maintenance
you-
ideas.
That's how you keep the neuroplasticity always
Yeah.
gaining, and that's why we've never really hit a plateau since we started, since last June. I mean, we got her doing really well.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
she's
and I have
doing
an
really well.
incredible family of caretakers that help me, and
Sounds
you know
like it.
they help me do a lot of these therapies as well. You know, Selena does my wiggle board for me, and you know my Brandy, she does the schoolwork for me with my mom. You know, she's constantly writing and you know we're just attacking everything from every angle all the time. You know, my mother does not sit idly in bed all day. In the beginning, she was very tired, so I'd have to just work her for a little bit and let her sleep. Now she's up all day. 6:30 in the morning, she's up, and 7 p.m. at night, she's in bed. That's that. That's why she had to leave on time because she has a schedule,
bed, yep.
and everything. All of her therapies have to happen. She she doesn't miss days. You know, I get up in the morning. I have to give her her thyroid because she did have a thyroidectomy, meaning that she doesn't have a thyroid, and I need to give her the pills, which are natural, but still it's a pharmaceutical, to do the function that her thyroid would. But then I have to wait an hour. Then she gets her celery juice, but then I have to wait a half an hour before she can have her 2 pharmaceuticals, her two little blood pressure pills, and then I have to wait a half an hour before she can have her shake. And then she has her 30 pills of different natural things that she takes. Like some of the stuff is from the company Amari that I was mentioning. So she's on the fundamental pack, which helps heal the gut, which is what you were talking about was so important, activates the brain, and then helps the gut-brain axis hook the two together. And that has been an amazing nutraceutical for us. When I first got her home, it was at January. In August, I found this, and she could barely sit in her chair. She would just sort of be leaning over and drooling out of the side of her mouth, no talking at all. She couldn't feed herself. She couldn't do anything. And I started her on the reboot, 3-day reboot from Amari, and then the fundamental pack. In 3.5 days, she was sitting straight up, and she was starting to speak. It was truly, it was amazing. It made me just break down into tears, and that's why I'm such a big fan of that company. So
Sure, that's like their main. That's their steamroll product. Is
That's
the
their
gut-brain axis.
yes, it is. It is. And then from
yeah.
there, they have Mood Plus, which is a really great stabilizer to help you get out of fight or flight. And so I give her that, which has been a great support for what Dr. Steve and I are doing. And then Relief Plus is a turmeric-based product to really bring the inflammation in her body down, so I can get some more pharmaceuticals out of her world. Little by little, I use all these things, and their shakes are really fantastic too. And we usually start our morning with those. And I use their protein powder and their super seed and their superfood and their seed fiber, and it's been great for gut motility. And I know she's getting fruits and veg, and I'm adding my own fruits and veg in like crazy. So every day she's getting either pineapple or melon and greens and carrots and coconut and almonds and hemp seeds and seaweed. Don't tell her. No, she doesn't have a problem with that. Actually, she could do things that were like crazier than me in the health world. She was always really into this stuff.
Yeah.
So she's very happy to have all my fantastic concoctions.
Ah, cool.
And she always asks if it's natural because she does not like pharmaceuticals either. So she's very happy to be taking her extra A's and her extra D's and her extra zinc, to help the antiviral situations. And
Sure.
yeah, we have it all going on.
It sounds like it's a full-time schedule that you have.
It is, yeah, it is. I have
Yeah.
about 2.5 hours free a day, other than the care I give my mom. But I make it happen, and in that time, I get to do my health coaching, which I really, really love. So I spend a lot of time, sharing and caring, which is what I'm made for.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully this video will reach a lot of people and hopefully share and inspires others to not give up.
Yes.
You did an amazing job. You got a great team going on here.
Yes.
Their health coaching is very strong, so
Yeah.
that's why we're here to say, there are solutions out there. You're not
Yes.
stuck when you have plateaued from a brain injury, from any kind of traumatic brain injury. We are your team. So
Cool.
with the monitoring that we do, we're the best.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
She's the best. So.
You were too.
So.
Yeah, I like to take my clients and help them work with their doctors. I mean, sometimes I even go to the appointments, but if not, I send out a list for the doctor to review, and I want answers back, and I want tests done, and if the tests aren't done, I want answers, because this is what we all have to do for ourselves. We have to be our own health advocates. So I teach my clients how to be their own health advocates.
That's awesome. Where can they find you? Do you have a website that they can find you at?
arteetra.com.
Okay, I'll include that in the show notes.
Fantastic.
That way
Thank
people
you.
can
Thank
find
you.
you. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm here for you guys if you need me.
Awesome. Well, anything else you guys would like to share before we wrap it up?
Thank you for
thank
letting
you.
us share our story, and thank you for showing my mom that we all care. It's really nice.
That's great. Well, thank you guys for coming on and sharing an amazing story. Dr. Steve, always a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks, bud.
And guys, I appreciate you following along. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button so you can see our weekly releases of videos. Go follow us on Instagram to keep up to date on our latest podcast. And thank you guys again. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.